Alright, this is Dwight Shelby with the Opposite Force Parkour. Today we're going to talk about a pretty loaded topic within the parkour and free running community: stretching, warming up, and cooling down. These are very important aspects that other sports hold true and dear. And I think one of the main reasons why it's not touched on so often with parkour and free running is because a lot of the athletes didn't start out as athletes, because there's no set workout system, there's no set stretching routine. There are a lot of parkour and free running athletes out there who are not doing these things and are sustaining injuries. And that's what I'm seeing a lot over Facebook. There's a lot of people complaining about injuries, about having pains after exercising, after getting done with their parkour routine or their parkour training, and they're sustaining these injuries. So we're going to talk about preventing those with proper warm-up techniques. Now, warming up and stretching are two different things. Warming up is really about making the muscles more pliable and getting the joints warmed up before you go into your routine or your exercising, whatever type of exercising you may be. Now, you can warm up and then stretch, or you can actually stretch after a warm-up. It really just depends on your own personal preference. So first thing we're going to get into is warming up. Best way to warm up: just move around a little bit. Quadrupedal movement is a great way to warm up if you're already pretty limber. If you're super stiff, or you've been sitting around in a freaking chair all day at a cubicle, you're not going to want to just jump on the ground and start doing some quadrupedal movement. So anything that's going to be light exercises that are going to get the body warmed up. I'm not about to do a bunch of jumping jacks because I'm probably going to shake the camera pretty bad where it is, but you can do jumping jacks. You can take a very light run. You don't want to do a very strenuous run and pull a hamstring or something like that. You can do little windmills with your arms. Really get your hip flexors worked out, just by turning at the waist a little bit. That's really all it takes to warm up. Just get your body warm. Don't go into a stretching routine or an exercising routine with cold muscles. You want to get warm blood to your muscles. So let's think about a popsicle. You take a popsicle and you bend it at the middle while it's frozen. Most of the time, it'll snap. Either the delicious frozen popsicle itself will snap, and even the plastic might snap. It's the same thing that will happen or could happen to a cold muscle if you have not warmed up properly. So make sure that you have a good, strong warm-up routine. Like really just a little bit of jogging, some knee raises, anything that really just gets the blood flowing a little bit so that your body is warm. And then we're going to go into stretching. With parkour, every joint is important. It's really the same with anything that you do physically. So you sort of want to start from the head on down so that you can get everything worked out and stretched. But you also want to hit some key points, especially when it comes down to increasing your flexibility. A lot of problems with people's flexibility normally comes from this area: your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower abdominal region, especially when it comes down to the psoas, the muscles that run from the lumbar spine down in front of the hips and connect on the inside of the femur. This is the femur? Femur. Sorry, lost it. My wife's shaking her head behind the camera. Yes, inside of the femur. Those are very important. For a lot of people, they're really stiff and they cause a lot of lower back pain. Whenever you're doing parkour, you're making a lot of landings, and unless your landings are super duper clean and you're really landing to the balls of your feet and absorbing those impacts, you might be dealing with some lower back pain. So starting from the head, when we do cats, we do a lot of this, right? You're in the cat position, you're looking over your shoulder to see where the hell to go. So you're going to want to work on the neck. Neck simple. Just turn around a few times. There's a lot of science going on right now. People are trying to decide if static stretching or if active stretching is better. Static stretching is when you hold a pose, touch your toes, and everybody's like, oh, touch your toes for like 5 minutes, or sit, and touch your toes for like 5 minutes. It's just stupid. It takes a really long time to improve your flexibility that way. And now people are wondering if moving while you're stretching, things like yoga, are going to be more beneficial. So Start at the neck. Then you're going to go to the shoulders. Shoulder shrugs are really good for not only really getting those joints worked up, but for getting your shoulder girdles ready for the impacts that you're going to be taking. Just shrug your shoulders around, count them up. Don't let them start burning. If you're doing that and your shoulders start burning up, that's a bad thing. You don't want to burn out your shoulder girdle. Elbows. Elbows are simple for parkour. Just get a little stretch in them. Put your hand under your elbow, push down pretty good, push up at the same time, and just rotate the elbow around. Now what you can do is you can actually get the wrist swinging at the same time, and that's really going to help to get some heat into that wrist. Now we're going to pan down a little bit, and I'm going to show you what to do with the wrist on the ground. Now we're down here, we're going to stretch our wrists. I am seeing that with a lot of sports programs, especially in college, when you're talking about quarterbacks and basketball players, they do a lot of stretching with the wrist. Parkour free running athletes, not so much. Also with calisthenics, those guys do a lot of work with their wrists because they're on them a lot with handstands and things like that. So let's work on our wrists. First thing that we're going to do is plant them straight on the ground. We're going to get on our knees, and we're going to pull them pretty close to us, but not way back here. Put them out a little bit, and you're just going to bear your weight down through your knees onto your wrist, and you're just going to come forward, and you're just going to count for a little bit. If it hurts, you're probably going forward too much. You're probably going forward too much. You don't want to do that. You can also put your hands on the back side like this, and you can pull back. That'll stretch the top of the wrist. And you can do it to the side as well on the back of your hands. So there's lots of different ways to stretch your wrist. Try different ways that work for you. Increasing your wrist flexibility is great, especially for landing a lot of cat grabs and really getting great at your Kong. Increasing wrist flexibility is awesome. Last thing you want to do is jam up your wrist because you did not stretch them or work on them enough. So watch out for the wrist because they can be a big trouble area for a lot of people. Now we're going to go back up top. And here we're going from the wrist to the hips. Hips are tricky as well because all of that hip flex. I know a lot of people really getting started with parkour. We sit a lot. We wake up in the morning, we sit down, we eat, we get in our car, we sit, we drive to work, we sit at work, maybe even 6 to 8 hours, which is awful. Then we get up, we get back in the car, we sit, we pick up the kids while we're sitting. We go home, sitting, and then we normally sit to watch television. That's what's happening with the sedentary lifestyle that is destroying athletics in America. That's a completely different topic, but we are going to talk about what that does to the lower back and to the hip flexors. They do a lot of things like disrupting the spine and making strange changes to the posture. I'm not going to go through the names of all of those, but that can happen. So, it's a very simple test. Easy. Put your toes together, bend down, touch them. If you can't, you have poor hip flexibility. There's other ways to check the proficiency of your hip flexibility. You can search on Google for a few of those. Some of them involve lying down and having somebody put their hand under the small of your back to see how much space there is between the small of your back and the ground, to see if maybe your spine is in a strange position because you want it to be in a neutral position. So really start getting a lot of work done on that lower back. Hamstrings. Man, hamstring pulls. I pulled a hamstring. I overstretched my hamstring. I'm having troubles with my hamstring. I can't tuck my toes because of my stinking hamstring. It seems like I hear more problems with the hamstrings than anything else. Start getting those hamstrings worked out. But I'm also going to show you a stretch I see a lot of people doing for the hamstrings. It's not really one of the best, and it's this. I see people doing that all of the time for the hamstring. But why? You should actually be able to feel where a stretch is taking place, where the body is actually being stretched. And when you get this pull going, you don't get the pull through the hamstring, you get it through the top of the thigh, okay? You want to get the back. Toe touches are absolutely great for that, but I'm going to show you real quick one of my favorite stretches for the hamstring, and then we'll go to the ankles. What I do for my hamstrings is I keep one leg straight, and I like to put my foot right on the inside of my thigh. Now, I'm not super flexible. I've been working on my flexibility for a good long time. I was only interested with being as flexible as I needed for my parkour training. But now I'm really increasing my flexibility and, pretty much pushing my muscles to their limits. And I'm stretching every day, usually twice, but sometimes 3 times a day. And this one is super simple. Do not grab your foot. I was having an issue where I was really trying to touch my forehead to my knee with this stretch, and I was grabbing my foot. Well, what grabbing the foot does is pulls against the calf. And while the calf is pulling down, it's pulling the hamstring down as well. What you want is to allow the back to pull the hamstring up this way so you can get a good stretch into the hamstring. So go about here, where you can get your fingers under your leg, like this, okay? And then you're simply going to stretch. Very simple, great stretch. You can feel that all the way through the hamstring, all the way up through the lower back. Give yourself a good count, breathe deeply. And what you can do while you're working on that stretch is every time you breathe, try and get your head a little bit closer to your knee, but without going into that serious threshold of pain. Stretching is supposed to pull. It's supposed to be a slight discomfort, but if it hurts, you're going too far. And the last thing you want to do is wake up tomorrow and find out that you burned something out or that you've overstretched a muscle. That's almost as bad as not stretching at all. And then our ankles. So we're going to do our ankles. And ankles work just like this. You're going to just pull your foot up and you're just going to rotate on the ankle. Get some heat in there. Get a nice stretch into the ankle. And that will allow you to make sure you're not blowing out your ankles while you're doing precisions or anything like that. Switch sides. Make sure you get both sides. Okay, now we're going to pan back up. And we're going to talk about cooling down. There are a lot of ways to cool down. Some of them are getting a deep tissue massage, swimming. If those are things that are available to you, you get done with your exercise, jump in the pool, and swim to cool down a little bit. You can also stretch to cool down. So if you decide on a routine, one of the best that I'm finding for myself is to warm up before I do parkour, jump into my routine because I probably already stretched in the morning. I go through my training routine, and then when I'm done, I stretch after for my cool down. So I knock out both of those at the same time. Now, some small things, as long as you stay moving, one of them that's really funny that I've been finding on a lot of lists of ways to cool down after exercise, which you're probably going to hate, is cleaning your house. Housework. Anything where you stay moving, but where it's really, really light on your body will help. Stretching, cleaning up your house, and the number one way that I'm finding is yoga. But yoga is also a great way to stretch in general because you're not holding these annoying static poses that sometimes do more harm than good because you don't really realize that maybe you've held that stretch a little too long. Stretching doesn't actually lengthen the muscles. Stretching really just teaches the brain that it's okay to go beyond that pain section, that point where your body's saying, hey, you shouldn't stretch that any further than that, so I'm going to make you feel pain so that you stop doing that to me. The more you stretch, the more your body will realize, maybe it's okay to stretch a little bit further. And maybe a little further. And maybe I'll actually let this dude do a full toe touch. That's not an issue with me, but maybe it is with you. So, find a good stretching routine. Warm up. Cool down. Don't be one of those losers that blows out their freaking hamstrings doing a big stupid jump because you didn't warm up. You don't just want to be sitting out for months and months injured. If you go out to a jam, which a big problem is people go out to jams and just start training. And then they have this cool down period where they're chilling, hanging with their friends, sipping some super cold water, which actually is not good for you while you're exercising. And then they go in full tilt boogie into their next routine and blow something out. I know for a fact it happened at Beast Coast a lot, which was just a few days ago. So all you guys that went to Beast Coast and you didn't freaking stretch, shame on you. I'm out.